Now, what does subject to mean? Well, if you've ever read a deed says in it, you're taking ownership of this property subject to the following. Subject to zoning restrictions, subject to maybe it's in an HOA association and their rules, subject to unpaid taxes, because taxes are usually paid in arrears for the previous year. So if you buy in June, the taxes are due for are not due yet till the following year, but they've been accrued for that year. So you're taking subject to unpaid taxes. So there's a lot of subject tos we normally take a property to. But if we leave the existing mortgage lien in place, and by the way, when I say mortgage, in some states it's a deed of trust, in some states it's a mortgage, but it's the same thing. It's a lien against the property as collateral for the promissory note that the borrower signed. If we take a property, we take ownership of the property, and we take ownership by seller signing a deed, and then we go ahead and record it down at the county, it's now our property. Now, we haven't paid off the existing loan, which means the lien has not been released. So we are taking the property subject to the existing mortgage lien. That's what subject to means. We're not going to assume it. We're not going to go down to the bank and ask for permission, because if it's an owner-occupied property and you're an investor, they're probably not going to let you assume it anyway. And they're going to make you qualify even so. They're going to make you pull your credit, and they might jack the interest rate up on you, or they might make you pay down the principal somewhat. There's a lot of, buts in there. So we're not going to assume the loan. We're not going to ask permission. We're just going to take the property subject to the existing mortgage. So it looks something like this. We've got a property. We've got a borrower. We'll put a sad face on him because he's motivated and in distress. And then we have the bank over here, which we can draw a little piggy. I think that's a piggy. Curly tail. Okay, so we have the seller, who's the borrower, and we've got the house. Now, the borrower signed a note to the bank, a promissory note, to purchase the property or to refinance the property. The bank has a lien against the property, a mortgage or a deed of trust, depending what state you're in. And the borrower has title, has the deed to the property in his name. So that's the way it looks before you come along. Now, if this borrower can't make the payments or isn't willing to or just can't afford to or is already starting to be in default, you come along, Mr. Happy Face, and you ask the borrower, who's the seller, to deed the property over to you. Okay? So now you are now the owner of that property the minute that's deeded over. Now, some people have a struggle with that because they say, wait a minute, what about the mortgage on the property? Well, there's still a mortgage on the property. There's still a lien against it. It's just that this person no longer owns it. You own it, and there's still a lien. Now, what happens if you don't pay on the note, the payments? Well, the bank can foreclose against the property. The bank can also, if there's what's called a deficiency, meaning there's more owed than the foreclosure sale yields, go after the borrower because the borrower signed a note. But the bank can't sue you. So it's going to remain on the borrower's credit report, the seller, in this case, their credit report, and it's not going to be on yours. Okay? So you take the property subject to the existing mortgage lien, and you're going to make payments to the bank. Okay, we're not going to assume it, we're not going to ask for permission, we're just going to do it.